Day 483 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzy here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a quick look again at those Russian losses, and currently Russia is sitting on 222,000 military personnel losses. Then as for the hardware losses, 9 tanks, 21 APVs, a whopping 32 artillery systems, and even 3 air defense systems as well. All of which are clearly staggering numbers, which are indicative of the current counteroffensive on the map. Then we head over to the map as a gunpowder factory is on fire in Russia's Tambov Oblast. So moving up right there, as all reported by the Russian state media outlet TASS. And so the region's governor seemed to be pretty adamant in wanting to communicate that the cause of the fire was due to human error and instead was not some attack from internal partisans that are anti-war. But sure, whatever you say. Then we'll head back into Ukraine in what appears to be a state of panic as Russia is engaging in futile offensive operations in the northern Donbass, as they are still presumably aiming to restrict the maneuverability of Ukrainian elements and also alleviate some of the pressure placed on Bakhmut due to the recent successes of Ukraine's counteroffensive in the region. Because, for instance, today the Russian forces went on an offensive just west of Pishain, and there it is, so on the front lines just earlier today. But their armoured assault group that tried to attack Ukrainian positions was discovered, targeted, and destroyed. So the Ukrainian defenders were clearly prepared in what appears to be a lack of intelligence gathering by the Russian assault group just prior to the storming. But you know how it is, act first, then ask questions later, has in many ways been the MO, or modus operandi, of the Russian army in this war. And then next up, we'll go really quite south into the Russian-occupied Donetsk Oblast, as Volnovakha has been hit by what looks and sounds like a HIMARS missile. Now, the reason why this is important is because it's an extremely important logistical railway line for the Russian forces, as the Russian war machine likes to maintain a heavy reliance on rail to transport their arms. That and a bunch of Scooby-Doo vans. You see, I'll zoom out for this one, but the white lines on the map in fact show you the railway lines in use by the Russian forces in the south right there. And the Ukrainian actions like these will only become more pronounced as time goes on, and certainly I would expect this to happen notably quite a lot more in the upcoming weeks of the AFU's existing counteroffensive operations. Of which I'm reminded of the D-Day landings and Battle of Normandy in occupied France way back in World War II, 1944, as the Allied offensive to reclaim Normandy took about 12 weeks and, in fact, covered roughly the same amount of surface area as we can see right here in the Russian-occupied south. Then heading over to the Zaporizhia front today, so Russia actually performed multiple counterattack operations in recently liberated Piatikutki, but it dismally failed, causing multiple Russian tanks and other various armoured vehicles to be destroyed. And so now the AFU are attacking towards Zerobyanki as they set their sights on liberating that town also. And both sides of the war have been pretty transparent about all of those actions happening right here at the moment. And then so moving east, there's been a bit of an update on the map to show the AFU liberating and continuing to push south to Robotyne. And in fact, if we pull out the date map, we can see in the last day or two, there's even been more gains on that front there. Then we head across most easterly of the Zaporizhia front right now, as the main areas of fighting at the moment are in, zoom in for this one, always need to, Urozane, but also at Levadne and moving towards Priutne. So from Levadne there to Priutne. Oh, and then I'd like to mention, before it comes to pass, that although there are no changes at Rivnopil, the Russian forces are actually squashed between natural obstacles, as you can see there, as per the water bodies here, which all adds to the likelihood of them being forced out of this location sooner or later due to limited movement capabilities back and forth. We've seen it before, it's just likely to happen again, especially here. And all of that extra blue would just look beautiful on the map. Then we'll head across to some news for today, start out with some more hardware updates. So Ukrainian military hardware manufacturer, Ukroboronprom, has announced that they've successfully completed the first flight of their 1,000-kilometer range unmanned kamikaze drone that carries a 75-kilogram payload. And that 1,000-kilometer range is a range that will easily reach military installations such as those found in Moscow, but also St. Petersburg as well. Now, in this war, we almost always exclusively talk about Soviet Russian hardware or NATO hardware. But what never gets a lot of press is the indigenously designed and developed Ukrainian hardware, such as these long-range drones just mentioned, or the Neptune missiles that took out Russia's Moskva ship last year in the Black Sea, also the guided Vilka missiles that Ukraine has made as well. So in a world where Russia only wants Ukraine to use old Soviet hardware, which cannot really be replaced. Then add to that how Russia throws a tantrum every time Ukraine uses some new NATO hardware. There's gotta be a third unrestricted option. And there is. It's Ukraine's own fledgling arms industry. All of which may end up causing Ukraine to become an actual decent arms exporter after this war ends. And perhaps especially so due to all of this real-world testing that goes right along with it. Then in some other news, Europe has banned over 90% of all oil imports from Russia as a result of Russia's invasion into Ukraine last year. I mean, talk about a painful economic backfire for a country whose economy is relatively under-diversified, who at the same time rely on the profits from their oil exports to help fund their war in Ukraine. So, cue the boomerang animation for Russia. Then in some other news, Russia's defense minister, Shoigu, made an interesting statement recently, saying that the use of the UK Storm Shadows or the US HIMARS guided rockets there will cause an immediate retaliation strike or strikes on decision-making centers in Ukraine. But Russia is trying to hit the decision-making centers of Ukraine already. So I'm not sure where he's going with that one precisely. Then in a quick funny to round it all off today, guys, so 483 days into Russia's 3-day special military operation, what we have here is Russia's top propagandist, Solovyov, who still claims that Russia's army is the best in the world. And yes, not the second best in the world, and certainly not the second best in Ukraine. And so he goes on to say that the way the Russian army is fighting will be studied by academies around the world. And I actually do agree with that statement, but not for the reasons he thinks. As it was best said by US Secretary of State Antony Blinken when he said just a couple of weeks ago how Russia's leadership, equipment, technology, strategy, tactics, and morale is a case study in failure. So that comment was an absolute masterclass in roasting. So that'll be it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Please, again, leave a like. Really helps boost out the channel. Subscribe if not already. Really appreciate that one as always too. Thanks again for all of your support, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.